All right, let's just jump right in. You know how it is. Every single day, there's a new headline about AI, right? One minute, it's this world-changing breakthrough that's going to solve everything. The next, it's a total threat to our jobs, our creativity, the whole shebang. But the real story, well, it's way more complicated, a little messy, and honestly, a lot more interesting than those headlines let on. So in this explainer, we're going to dig into all of it. The crazy boom, the inevitable backlash, and the really big questions we're all wrestling with.
Okay, I want to start with just one number, 56%. Now that sounds pretty huge, doesn't it? It's the year-over-year revenue jump for Nvidia. You know, the company basically building the engine for this whole AI revolution. So you'd think, wow, that's unstoppable growth. But here's the kicker, and this is what's so fascinating. That 56%, it's actually their slowest growth in more than 2 years. Kind of puts things in perspective, huh?
So this table really shows you the two sides of the coin. I mean, on one hand, the numbers are just insane. We're talking over $41 billion in data center revenue, and they're predicting a record-breaking jump next quarter with their new chips. The demand is just off the charts. But look a little closer. They actually missed their forecast, just slightly, but still. And then there's this massive risk factor hanging over everything. Those geopolitical trade restrictions, especially with China. So yeah, the foundation looks solid, but you can definitely start to see some cracks forming around the edges.
And so even with some investors getting a little nervous, this is the message coming straight from the top. The CEO is basically saying, hey, the party is just getting started. And that super strong optimism from the industry leaders, that's one half of the story we're telling today. But the real question is, what happens when that confidence leaves the spreadsheet and hits the street? You know, when it actually gets into the real world.
All right, so let's do a reality check. Let's see what happens when we go from those shiny boardroom projections all the way down to, well, the drive-thru. So in the office, things are moving at lightning speed. I mean, huge companies like Google and Microsoft, they're not treating AI like some nice-to-have skill anymore. Nope. It's now a core job requirement. It's literally part of your performance review. The message couldn't be clearer. Get on board or you're going to get left behind.
But then, you've got the drive-thru. And this is just the perfect contrast, isn't it? Taco Bell went all in on using AI to take your order, and now they're actually scaling it back. And the reason? The AI just kept getting the orders wrong. Think about that. We have AI that can pass the bar exam, but it struggles to understand that you want extra hot sauce. It really shows you the disconnect.
And this wasn't some tiny pilot program. We're talking over 500 locations here. The whole thing was just riddled with customer complaints, all sorts of operational glitches. It got so bad they're now testing these hybrid systems where a real person has to jump in and fix the AI's mistakes. And that right there is the core of the issue. This massive, kind of hilarious gap between AI being a mandatory skill for a software engineer and it completely failing to order a Chalupa Supreme.
And you know, that friction, that gap between the promise and the reality, well, it's starting to feel a real human backlash. This goes way beyond whether an AI can get your taco order right. Now we're talking about huge questions about our culture, our jobs, and our ethics.
Just look at what's happening at the University of New South Wales. It's a perfect example. The school created this new course, Generative AI for Artists, saying, hey, this is the future. Artists need to learn this stuff. But then, bam! You've got students pushing back hard. We're talking a petition with over 7,000 signatures demanding they scrap the course. They're raising huge red flags about IP theft and the environmental costs. So this isn't just a simple argument over a class. It's a fundamental philosophical battle over what art even is in the age of AI.
And look, this anxiety isn't just a feeling. It's backed up by some pretty tough numbers. A recent report found that 59%, that's nearly 6 out of 10, recent graduates are having a hard time finding an entry-level job. Now sure, AI isn't the only reason, but there's this growing fear that it's swallowing up the exact kind of work that used to be the first step into a career. It's creating this real, palpable unease for a whole generation just trying to get started.
But the problems aren't just out here in the real world. We actually need to look inside the code itself. Because the issues aren't just about how we're using AI, they're about the fundamental flaws and the serious risks that are baked right into the technology from the very beginning.
The CEO of DeepMind calls this jagged intelligence, and it's a perfect description. It's this completely bizarre phenomenon where an AI can, say, write a beautiful poem or debug 1,000 lines of code, but then it completely bombs a simple math problem that a third grader could solve. It's like it's a genius and an idiot at the same time. And that lack of just
common sense reasoning, that's seen as a huge barrier to ever reaching true artificial general intelligence. And this isn't just a problem with the AI we have today. When we look down the road at what's coming next, like GPT-5, the same issue pops up. Yeah, it's going to have these mind-blowing new abilities with both text and images, but the security researchers who test this stuff, they call it red teaming, they've already shown how these more powerful models can also be tricked into spitting out instructions for some really dangerous things. It seems like for every step up in power, we get a brand new set of risks to go along with it.
And let's be clear, this isn't some far-off hypothetical problem. It's happening right now. A recent report from Anthropic confirmed it. Criminals are already using AI to build ransomware and cook up extortion schemes. So the danger isn't on the horizon. It's here. It's now. Okay, so we've got this incredible potential on one side and these really serious risks on the other. How in the world do we navigate this? Well, let's look at how society is starting to respond.
You know, one of the most interesting reactions to all this is something you might not expect. As the internet gets absolutely flooded with AI-generated junk and misinformation, what are people doing? They're running back to sources they can actually trust. There's a clear trend showing people are relying more and more on established, credible news outlets. It makes perfect sense, right? When anything can be faked, trust becomes the most valuable thing there is.
And then the conversation goes to some really, really wild places. Get this. An AI rights advocacy group has been formed, for real. Their whole goal is to start talking about these huge, thorny questions around AI consciousness and whether digital suffering could actually become a real thing that we need to worry about.
And that leads us to the final, really big question that just kind of hangs in the air. It's a total mind-bender, but it gets to the absolute heart of where all this is going. We know AI can fake emotion, it can fake intelligence, it can fake creativity, but what happens when it gets so good that it can convincingly simulate suffering? If we can't tell the difference, do we have a duty to listen? That's the kind of question we're all going to have to figure out, and probably a lot sooner than any of us are ready for.